Welcome back to The Line. I'm Gene Grant here with our special panel of journalists who are helping us count down the top stories of 2015. You can see the full list on our website, newmexicoinfocus.org. Number 2 on our list is political resignations. One of the biggest stories of the year was the resignation of Secretary of State Diana Duran. She pled guilty to charges related to her use of campaign funds at casinos around the state. Ms. Duran will serve 30 days in prison and must meet several other requirements set out by the judge in her sentencing. And Tripp, there are many opinions about whether Ms. Duran's sentencing was fair, and I underplay that. I mean, I'm hearing like an explosion as of these past few weeks that she got off very, very lucky. Particularly, her $4,800 a month pension is intact. That is galling for some folks. What's your sense of how
well,
this
I mean,
is going
we
down?
have to say that there are people actually out there also who are saying, don't sentence her. There were folks,
That's right.
Steve Pierce,
That's right.
Bill Scher, the senator out there. I do think that probably people are frustrated. It's not just Diana Duran. This is just the latest scandal. You had Phil Griego, but before that, let me just say, I arrived here in 2005. The first thing I had to cover was Robert V. Hill. The U.S. Attorney's Office. Then we're off to the races. Manny Aragon, Joe Ruiz, federal, he was a deputy superintendent of insurance. Then we had Bill Richardson, who lost actually the Commerce Secretary post. Not convicted or indicted or anything like this. But then you had Rebecca Villal-Jaron, who didn't wind up, but 3 lobbyists actually were indicted and convicted by federal juries. So we have one thing after another. And we have Diana Duran, who's talking about, I want to be the Secretary of State, who comes in after 2 Democratic, scandal-plagued administrations. I'm going to be the person who, integrity.
That's right.
People are sick of this.
That's right. And it got her into office.
Sick of integrity?
No, well, I mean, maybe, but I mean, they're sick of the scandals.
That's right. Interesting. Go ahead and pick up on where Tripp was at.
Yeah,
on this.
he mentions all these people, and they were all Democrats. This has to point it out.
Right.
Diana Duran gets this; she's a Republican, and we get all these emails from the Democratic Party here saying, the Martinez administration. And I said, wait a minute, we were just talking about this is not a Republican Democrat. This is a New Mexico thing.
Very important point.
This is happening for years, and even the Attorney General is saying, look, we have a system here, especially with our campaign finance, that is $1 million operations that are run like lemonade stands. We need to fix it. It's
about power.
We used to have teeth in these laws, and it was taken away.
Right.
Now it's time to put them back, and it's now on all of them to pass laws to make campaign finance laws that have teeth that are enforceable. It is not that way, and it opens it up for corruption like this.
Julianne, this idea that not just the pensions staying in place, but the 30 days. I've got the sense when I read a lot of comments on various sites around town and Facebook that folks wouldn't have been happy with anything less than like 5 or 6 or 10. You know what I mean? Like a long time. Was this woman are folks trying to unfairly dump their frustration of all those things Tripp Jennings pointed out onto her? And that's part of the angst here, that they feel like 30 days is not long enough?
I mean, I think one of the big issues here is that the person who is in charge of enforcing campaign finance rules is breaking the rules herself for a long period of time, and no one knows about it. So what else is going on with every other candidate? There are hundreds of candidates who file those reports, and we, the voters, assume that someone is looking at those and cares about them. As a journalist who's covered a lot of that kind of stuff, you spend hours poring over these reports. You do stories that maybe people read or they don't read, but you think that at least the Secretary of State is paying attention and trying to hold people accountable. And when it becomes obvious that she's not, I think that's the real erosion of credibility. When it comes to the jail sentence thing, frankly, I was surprised they threw the 30 days at her.
Interesting.
What I like, the part of the sentence I like, is that she has to buy ads in 6 New Mexico newspapers, the I'm sorry ads, and I hope we get one of those at my newspaper, but wherever that money goes, I'm sure it'll be well used by the struggling print industry.
That's
And
right.
we still have 6. That's great.
And the 30-day sentence starts right away.
That's right. Right through the holiday season.
Exactly.
Right. Or it went through the holiday season, excuse me, and she's still there.
So, I was a little bit, I thought that Judge Ellington would come down with something like this.
Okay.
I didn't think he was going to let her skate completely.
Was it fair in your view? 30 days and this restitution, was it 27,000 of restitution? Well, let me ask you this on the restitution. Is it not bizarre that she's going to be paying part of that restitution with taxpayer money from her pension?
Yes.
Doesn't that seem a little weird?
That's where I was going with
Right.
that. I mean, in this case, 30 days surprised a few people.
Right.
But if you're Diana Duran, take those 30 days with a smile because 30. I think getting off with 30 days and still keeping your pension is a pretty good deal for her.
Word on the street is you can have a great time at the Santa Fe County Adult Detention Center while you're there.
Really?
Well, you never, 30 days goes by
Orange
quick,
is
and you
the
never
new
know.
black.
Yeah.
That's right, orange is the new black, that's right. She wrote an apology letter.
She did.
And she has to write more apology letters to the folks who gave her money and hand it to them personally and say, look, I'm sorry.
Right.
What did you make of the apology letter? It was fairly brief and fairly dry.
Yeah, because
if I could use the
there was
word.
no outline. You must pour out your soul.
Right.
In addition to this, she's got to give these talks at schools. I mean, it was a number of different talks. Are these talks going to be public? I'm assuming they are. If we want to cover them, is she going to be contrite, or is she going to be as adamant as she was after her plea deal, saying, "I did not cost taxpayers any money"? Actually, you did, because we started the impeachment process. That cost us $17,000. So it did affect, even though this was private campaign finance, we ended up spending public money to prosecute it. So it did affect, and I'm interested to see if is she going to be contrite and come out and say, look, I'm sorry, this is wrong, don't do this, or is she just going to give the bare minimum?
Exactly right. But she also has an addiction.
That's
And we have to factor that in here. There's one thing about stealing, and then there's one thing about, I'm not to excuse it, but you know what I'm saying. There's a thing there that she has to get herself healthy and her family healthy and all that kind of stuff before any of this other stuff can happen.
Yeah. So when the indictment came down and I mean the charges came down and I read that, honestly I know Diana Duran because I covered her as a senator, and I was actually sick in my soul because it was a very human story. Now it really was. Now she really angered me the day that she came out and said I didn't do anything, I didn't spend, I didn't do any public money, I didn't use any public money. That really angered me because frankly she eroded public trust for because of all the reasons we've talked about. But you're right. There's a human being in this story. I understand that.
It's interesting that she's not saying I have an addiction. That there's a disease at play here. I made this mistake because I just can't control myself. That's something that we've all assumed based on the very careful forensic reporting that the New Mexican has done particularly. So I think that would have been an interesting take. Rather than her coming out and saying I did a good job and no money was wasted and I'm kind of sorry but not really. We didn't hear this I'm an addict thing come out of her mouth.
And from a political standpoint, Russell mentioned there are all these Democrats that were on this list, but Diana Duran's, the Republican poster child there, and I think that takes away a talking point, a political talking point in a political year.
How does this impact, guys, the administration as a whole? Start with you, Russell. The Martinez administration. I mean, things happen in every administration, but this is fairly high profile.
This is high profile.
Yeah.
And I think it's somewhat unfair to attach it to her because this is a separate office. Yes, they were allies. Yes, they run on the same political party. But they were in two different directions. Even immediately after the allegations came forth, Susana Martinez said if these allegations are true, she should resign.
right.
She's very
She's
front.
quick
She
about it.
didn't.
That's
She
right.
wasn't there defending her. So in ways it is, but it does take away the talking points for Republicans. We came up here to clean up Richardson corruption. Well, actually, you're actually fulfilling it in many ways that you have this case, and you have other looming cases that haven't been proven that are out there that is going to resonate in part of the narrative, and Democrats can run with it. But Republicans counter and say, look, we have one, you have 10.
But it's a big one.
I wonder if this is going to actually help the conversation during the legislative session, which is the system language
Yeah.
we're using. It's a system. It's about power. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. You've got a system here that helps lead people to this.
And I will say this, I don't think this is the last one. This is not the last one we're going to see. And not to throw a card, I think something.
I hear you, though. Yeah.
Is there anything that Diana Duran didn't pay attention to? Anything unscrupulous about anyone else's, maybe the governor's campaign finance reports? Was she really looking very carefully at them?
Good point.
They weren't auditing the number of, they weren't doing random audits in that office. That's another
Interesting.
thing.
Let me bring up something else. Second through Albuquerque City Councilor Brad Winter has been appointed, and he has already come out publicly to say he's not going to run for the seat as it comes up in the natural cycle next year. Good choice as an interim, as a seat holder?
I think so. I mean, it's not really a surprise because Mr. Winter's got a pretty good reputation, and he is closely aligned with the Martinez administration. So it's from a political standpoint, it makes a lot of sense.
Julian, what do you think about Brad Winter? I mean, let me ask you this. When a Secretary of State is something you really want to do, something like sort of burns in you. It's a fairly esoteric, odd thing. You don't just walk in and say, "Oh, I'm going to be Secretary of State now," which is why he's probably not going to run again. It doesn't burn in him, but.
I mean, I would have liked to seen, and I think this is at play in a lot of other situations, where you've got a Democrat who dies in office, a Republican gets appointed because there's a Republican governor. I would like to see the politicians seriously look at the runner-up. Maggie came really close. Bernalillo County Clerk Maggie Toulouse-Oliver came really close to winning that election. I don't understand why you don't just say, Maggie knows this job. She really wants it. She's probably going to run again. Let her do it. But that's not the kind of political environment
She's
that we're in.
definitely doing it for sure. She was all over Facebook seemingly right after this broke and just letting people know. It's interesting.
What she wrote, though, about Brad Winter getting appointed was just very PC. I got that email and I was like, what's Maggie going to say? And you open it and it's,
Right.
very conciliatory.
It's interesting also, Russell, Phil Griego, on a different subject, State Senator Phil Griego forced to resign. We have about a minute here. We'll kind of touch on this briefly. Touch on that a little bit. This is another erosion of public trust here.
Walks away.
Yeah.
Walks away,
Yeah.
and it looked like it was some sort of backroom deal before he left. And there's no charges, or if there are charges, we don't know.
Right.
And I think this has started the public, especially because of his position. And it hurt the legislature because he was a moderate Dem who's someone who could help bridge some gaps. And the fact that they lose him, I think it sent ripples to the legislature.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I've been here 10 years, never seen a legislator resign during a session in the final days. And that makes me wonder what was going on with the legislators, because they don't have a real fine tradition of taking on their own
Yes.
in that plane.
That's
so
right.
what was actually happening?
Exactly.
And the fact that ethics complaints are shielded and that they're not public, that we will never really know what the complaint said. I think that process could really help win back some public trust if these investigations that go on happen in a much more open way.
Rob Nicolexi, what do you think?
Phil had resigned, but then a few months ago he started spending some of his campaign money.
That's right.
That's
right.
So if you're going to resign and leave your district unrepresented for the last couple weeks of the session or last week of the session, but yet you're still going to spend money, that doesn't look good.
It's a system question. It's a system question.
Yeah.
It's about the system.
And the people that
rules.
control the system, are both these things together enough to cause some change in the system? This is what fundamentally you're asking, it seems to me. So.
And you've got, Santa Fe Reporter broke the news about Phil Griego's real estate deal in July.
That's right. And
The
things
session,
didn't happen until,
this,
right.
how much time do, as you said, how much time do the legislators need to hold their own accountable? That seems like a long time.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe this will be 2016 will be the year that Independent Ethics Commission finally starts to get some
wouldn't hold
traction.
your breath,
Right,
Jay.
exactly. Maybe 2017 we'll talk about that. Anyway, up next, our top news story of 2015.